water is. I cannot hear you.
And if there's no understanding of what is visible object now, there cannot be any understanding of the arising and falling away of visible object. And there cannot be any understanding of the foulness or the unsatisfactoriness of visible object, because instantly it's taken for something, for the beautiful scenery, for the beautiful water, because of the sanya vipalasa at each moment.
It is accumulated, so
it's
we
accumulated.
Cannot force anything.
No, it has to be like that. It can't be any other way.
No.
Yes. And we can see, like for one, like for us, we look at the water and the scenery, and there's so much attachment because we also love it underwater. But for someone like Ajahn, no attachment to water, because it's not the accumulation, but attachment to the mountains or other scenery. So it depends on the accumulations and the sanya, but actually it's only visible object that's seen.
Yes. Oh, yes, but we can repeat it again and again, and still we cannot change the accumulation.
No.
Only Panya can.
And only the Panya, only the understanding now can understand the accumulation. We can think about it. We can think about this person and that person's accumulations, but actually it's right now at this moment. The accumulation of understanding, the accumulation of lobha now, the accumulation of thinking of this and that. So it can only be understood at this very moment.
Yes, we have to hear this a lot, and only this very moment. But it still doesn't sink in. It's still really difficult.
And so what? That's how it is. It has to be like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought that last time, a couple of weeks ago, Ajahn made a very good comment when you brought up the topic of discouragement, how some people feel discouraged. And she said, without understanding, it's impossible to have less clinging. Usually when there's discouragement, or we say it doesn't sink in, we forget about what about the clinging at this very moment. Without understanding of clinging, it will always be like that.
Without understanding of clinging.
Clinging, right. Because of the clinging, that's why there is the thought of, oh, it doesn't sink in, or feeling discouraged, or not enough understanding. It's all a result of the clinging to self, clinging to understanding, clinging at this moment. So without understanding the clinging now, there will always be discouragement and, oh, it's not enough, and these kinds of thoughts.
And can you say more about understanding of clinging, what it is?
Like now, clinging to what is seen, clinging to what is heard, taking it for oneself, and clinging to my understanding, my seeing, my hearing. So without that clinging to I and my understanding, there would be no discouragement, no thinking about, oh, it doesn't sink in, or it's not enough. So what about the understanding of clinging now? Otherwise, it will always be like that.
Yes, but clinging to my understanding, this is a
or my lack of understanding, but clinging to me, clinging to I not having enough metta, I not having enough understanding, for me not sinking in. So it's the clinging that is the root of the problem, the clinging with ignorance.
And I think particularly in this case, being Putujanas, we're talking about there are four kinds of clinging, starting with Atta Upadan, then Ditupadan, then Sila Batupadan, and Kama Kamupadan. So the Sotapanna does not have the first three, has only Kamupadan. And when we, what Sarah is referring to, and when people talk about being discouraged, it's clearly the idea of self, clinging to the idea of self. That's the what's going on, what's happening there.
I see a note that Ajahn is ready now. Ajahn, are you here now?
สวัสดีค่ะ
Sawadika.
สวัสดีค่ะ
Everyone.
Nina, would you like to repeat your point at the beginning, because most people hadn't arrived, and then Ajahn can also hear it and add further comments too.
Yes, it was because of a point that Ellen brought up. What is the cause that we cling to beauty or the sense of beauty? And then Sarah answered that it is the perversion of chitta, the perversion of sanya, remembrance. But I think it's so difficult for people to follow this. And I took as an example that I received a photograph of someone, my therapist, who has a diving vacation, and she sent pictures of underwater. And I was so taken in by these pictures. It's unbelievable, this world underwater, so beautiful. And we can't help liking it. But Ajahn always says that the development of understanding has to be natural. So I think it's useful for people if Ajahn can elaborate more about natural development.
That's right. We cannot make anything arise at all, or we cannot change anything to, and we cannot arrange anything to arise at all. It's there already. That's why it's the confidence of the truth, just the word, not me, not anything at all. Otherwise, no matter what idea is my idea about this and my idea about that. But the key is that all Adhammas, is it firm enough? All Adhammas. That's why we consider each word of the teaching at moment of considering, it's moment of beginning to develop the understanding with confidence of the truth. And this is very important, because if there is no confidence of the truth, that actually what is seen now is not known as it is yet. That's why just develop the understanding by hearing again and considering again. For example, there's no rose, there's no window. There are only that which is seen or heard or smelled, that else. Is it true? So just have satya parami of the truth, firm confidence, nekama parami. Natural is now, because seeing has arisen already. And whatever is there after seeing has arisen already. That's why I study to understand that which we take for self, or thing that we'll do or I can do, actually is there already, but ignorance is there. So the most important reality to hinder, to cover up the truth, is not understanding the nature of that, which is now appearing as it is. But right understanding is not enough. It's a dig down up to that which is now arising and falling away. Certainly, surely now, that is not just seeing, there's hearing and thinking. That's why I learn about each one as it is. And it is right understanding only, not me or anyone, who begins to understand the importance of the truth, that it's so as it is, nobody can change. And it's now. Just begin to hear again and again and again. This is so natural, because it's not anyone at all. Hearing is hearing, considering is considering. What is there, but it's gone. And the other reality, not this one, hearing is not seeing, just so very natural. But the idea of what is it? What is the truth of it? Always is there. The truth of it is that it's there, but no understanding of the truth. That's why the understanding of the truth only will get closer and closer to understand that nature, as we have heard, it sees, see, little by little, and we don't know how long it will take to condition moment of clear understanding of that, because it's there. It's known as something, but in truth, at moment of touching, it cannot be anything. Just at moment of seeing, it cannot be anything. Just a moment of hearing sound, it's not anything. And this is accumulated naturally until one day, who knows, the moment when it conditioned clearer understanding of that which is now there appearing. That's why just listen again and again, it's there. At that moment, it is getting closer and closer and closer to the nature of it as it. That's all. No other way at all. The other way is not forgetting that what is there now is so real as no thing and no one, but not right understanding enough to let go the idea of self, because it just hearing about that which seems like it's there all the time, but the truth of it can be known little by little. That means that understand a reality one at a time, to understand that they are different. Otherwise, they cannot be separated. But each one arises and falls away, cannot be mixed with the other at all. That's why learning to understand a little more of each can condition the moment of understanding a reality as a reality, not the other reality.
You like it?
For example, hardness, it's there. But it's not only hardness is there. There is also that which experiences it. Just learn to understand that there is a reality which experiences it. Not try to know it, but to begin to understand what is true now, hardness, and that is a reality which is different from the hardness, because it now experiences hardness closer to the reality which is different. Hardness, not that which experiences it. And Sanya always remember atta, something, someone, all the time, the story, events, but not remembering that what is there now, hardness, what is there now, sound, what is there now, hearing, what is there now, liking, so on. That's why we are used to the world as something. But while there is the understanding a little more of that, it's the accumulation of that to condition moment, thinking of it in the beginning, just not forgetting. It can be in words, or it can be at moment of touching, smelling, thinking, or any moment by conditions. Have more confidence, Satya Barami and Adidana Barami of the truth, all by conditions, even right now. Just understand Dhamma as Dhamma, little by little. That is through the way to let go the idea of thing and I, and what is taken for permanent thing. That's why we talk. Yes.
Please continue, John. No, please continue, Tamajan. I was just going to say, Nina, and Ajahn has just alluded to this, that the Intl.Dhamma, the very pleasant object, we were talking about that recently online with Wakili, when the Buddha said to him, he who sees the Dhamma, he sees me, so Dhammam pasati, so mam pasati. And Ajahn is sort of pointing to that point again. It's just a Dhamma Yes, it is very, very beautiful. Like no doubt the different Dewalokas are very, very beautiful objects, almost continually or much of the time, I imagine. So Dewa there, they could develop understanding of their divine environment, their very pleasant object environment, just like we can, whether they are. I saw you mention that online, that Dutch colony there on the top of South America. Yes, I'm sure it is very beautiful in that conventional sense of the word, but we know that really it's not very beautiful. It is asuba, but it's very easy to be seduced by that world, and that's the nature, as we know, of ignorance.
Just live normally, naturally, hearing the teachings, thinking, liking, and so on. But the understanding of what he's heard is enrooted little by little, not to forget about that which appears. Because usually in a day, what is there appearing is forgotten all the time. But now, having heard, there can be a moment of, who knows, the moment which is conditioned by understanding to even just think about that. Or at moment of touching, it can be a moment of understanding a little of that which is hard, that is there. And so many realities arising and falling away, no selection to particular know this or particular know that at all. It depends on conditions, and the understanding of anothernness develop on and on by understanding the truth of this moment. Who knows what would be next moment? Who knows what thinking will think about by conditions? And Sanya remembers, and then only something. And what about that which it seems like Sanya does not remember? It doesn't remember the event, the story. But at that moment, Sanya remembers the moment which experiences that object, that is only gone. Otherwise, forgetting all the time, it's there for thinking about again and again and again. But in truth, even that moment is gone. And we take everything for I of ourselves. I remember, I do not remember. I like, I dislike, and so on. I'm happy, or it's painful, bodily feeling, see. Everything can be object of understanding when time comes, when there's more understanding, more confidence of Satya, it is now. And it's Etana, very firm confidence, not in word, but right now. Only that which is now appearing can be object of understanding no matter what. Even that one's gone. The other one, anyone, because whatever arises falls away in 3 seconds. It's quite a release, not to try so hard to know this or that. Just hearing again, actually, there must be the reality which is now experiencing an object. The truth is that. So we learn a little more about this and about that, about the reality, which is there, sometimes appears, and sometimes even it appears as someone or something. And right understanding begin to understand each reality at level of intellectual understanding of that. But later on, when there is more confidence, it conditions a moment of being aware, just a little, and then more and more by conditions. If there's no awareness, It's Dhamma. And Lopa is there, wanting to have it. That's why, never mind what reality is there so short, but that which is there to be object of thinking of, or attending to the characteristic, or being aware, or begin to understand it, that is the object of understanding. Otherwise, how can understand what? Anything. It's only that which is now appearing. That right understanding can understand it when it's there. At this moment, it's touching, even just a moment, very short of that. It indicates that it's mindful of that, no matter more or less. Little by little, it doesn't matter as long as it is there to be known, as it's just there, only when it is experienced, only when it appears. Life is so short. That which is not appearing is not there to be known.
Ajahn, you said what appears is usually forgotten. Maybe it's interesting for people if you could elaborate on that.
Yes, what is seen now?
What is there now? Thinking, usually.
And what is seen?
What is seen? We don't realize it's visible object. We think immediately of people and things.
At moment of not understanding the truth, is it moment of forgetting the truth of it?
Usually forgetting. Usually forgetting.
Yeah, it's that which is seen. What is the truth? What is the absolute truth? Not to forget. It's only that which can be seen. When it's not there, no one can make it be there at all. Sound, that which is heard, gone. Now, see, the proof of truth is always there, but forget about it until more moments of not forgetting that it's there as it is to be known. We don't have to look for anything. We don't have to try to do anything because it's there already. But no understanding enough to let go the idea of something or the time to be seen. But in truth, that is seen is just a moment of seeing that which cannot be taken for anything, because seeing cannot take what is there as anything. It just sees. The subtlety of all kinds of Dhamma, even that which is now experiencing an object is not known as it is, because forgetting that there is a reality right now which experiences an object. Otherwise, there cannot be any living at all, no existence. But now, what we take for being or existence, it has to be that which experiences. So that which experiences by condition, different moment, different object at a time. So how can there be I? And this is the intellectual understanding which developing little by little. And this is the only way, the fourth of the noble truth, of the four noble truths. It has to be only on this way, gradually, little by little, be mindful or awareness of that which is now appearing. And with our understanding, there can be a moment of having that object, but no understanding. That's why what is there has to be studied to understand the absolute truth of it. Otherwise, it's covered by ignorance an attachment to the idea of I or thing as it has been accumulated. So in order to let go the idea of thing or I or self, it has to be understanding the different characteristics of a reality when it's there only. Otherwise, it's just thinking about it, dreaming about it. But the truth is that at moment of dreaming, what is there? At moment of thinking, what is there? When they are more about dhammas, it begins to let go little by little, so very subtle. And that's why the path is so very subtle, so natural. No other way at all. That's why it has to be understanding only, which begin to understand how much ignorance in a day, which means how much accumulation of ignorance from life to life are conditioned now to be clinging, forgetting about the truth, and so on. Even that is Dhamma. Before all Dhammas in life are the object of understanding, naturally, stage by stage. So we are talking about different parami. Without parami, understanding, there's no way to understand the truth of what is there, as Buddha has enlightened and taught about the truth of it. So true, anytime it can be known directly or conventionally or intellectually in the beginning, but it's so true. And the understanding of the truth is now developing by itself, not by anyone at all, secretly, at any moment of understanding the truth. That's all, so natural. So natural, not by me who tries so hard to do anything or to think about it so hard. That how? So the word how is nothing, because it's only right understanding, not how I, but the understanding develops little by little. Now it's there. So very fast, very rapidly. It doesn't matter at all, because it is that which is seen in a day. Different moment, different object, but seeing is seeing. And that which is seen is seen. Until at moment of being aware, it is aware. So it becomes to experience the object clearer because of awareness is aware of that characteristic. By conditions, it can be anything unexpectedly. Otherwise, it's not Dhamma, it's not Anatta. It's I who try to make it that way, unknowingly, secretly. So how much understanding develops in a day can be known. What level can be known? Now, is it the firm confidence of that which is there to be known little by little when there is awareness, not only by hearing, considering intellectually, but it has to be at that very moment when there is understanding with direct awareness of a reality right now. Now it's not moment of being aware of sound or hearing, but when it's there, see, it's there. It's known as it is aware of what object. No doubt about the higher the degree of understanding, which is not just intellectual understanding. That's why no doubt about what is meant by awareness, right awareness. It's right because it is directly aware. And even the term awareness has so many degrees too. The awareness at the degree of the beginning of Patipatti or Sammapsati or Satipatthana. In the beginning, it's not as clear, as strong, but later, see, by developing, not by thinking or trying or wishing to have it, but by developing by itself the 8 factors, see, little by little, as parami. Without the accumulation of wholesome, it's impossible to understand, because ignorance and unwholesome reality cannot understand the truth. That's why there can be the moment of realizing how much ignorance one has accumulated.
Could I ask a question, Kunsuji?
Yes.
At this stage of ignorance, if there were moments of satipatthana, there wouldn't be noticing because panya is so weak. Is that what you're saying?
So can there be satipatthana when panya is so little and very weak?
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
That's why we think of the word satipatthana. But what is the difference between moment of satipatthana and moment which is not satipatthana right now? It has to be known right now.
So
If
you're saying
satipatthana does not arrive yet, how can there be the understanding that it is different from moment of hearing, considering, and understanding the nature of that which we are talking about, but not the characteristic which is there. For example, seeing, when it's not direct awareness, when it's not satipatthana, it's not at that which experiences or which we use the word seeing, because no word at moment of experiencing an object. And that reality, its characteristic is arises to experience an object. At that moment, when it is mindful of being aware of the nature of that which experiences, that object is not the object of understanding, but the characteristic of that which sees is there as no one and no thing. It experiences, thinking about nothing at all, only that which arises in experience. And if it's not that moment yet, how can there be the understanding of the reality which experiences?
okay. Because I heard you say a long time ago, I was listening to 2014, and you said, I discussed it when you weren't there, because the characteristic of experiencing is there to be learned to know that it experiences. And then you say, it has to be now at the moment of experiencing. It conditions the experiencing of reality. And this is my question, you say, which is just a little difference, unnoticeable if it is not panya, because it's so natural. And that's why the question was, because there's so much interest in theoretical understanding, there has to be somehow a point where it does start to condition panya, and then panya would be so weak anyway that there wouldn't be noticing. Well, maybe you can elaborate on what you said, that it's such a little difference, unnoticeable if it is not panya.
Right now, there is saying, what is there any understanding of the seeing?
No.
Moment of hearing, is there any understanding of hearing?
No, but there's realizing this, and that's already maybe a little bit more knowing that there are realities that are not known.
When the answer is no, it means that there's not the direct understanding of that which sees or that which hears, right? It's there already, but no understanding of it. If there's no hearing, considering about that which has no shape and form at all, but whenever it arises, it experiences. There must be the object, but at that moment, the object which is experienced does not show up, because at that moment it's the understanding with direct awareness of that which experiences. In a day, so many moments, or always any moment, there must be that which arises in experience. Otherwise, there's no life, no seeing, no hearing, no thinking at all. But what is known is not the seeing or the experience in a day at all, but the object which is experienced is the interest more than understanding. What is it? That's why even one heard about the experiencing is a reality. It arises by conditions, but it's not directly understand, just one experiencing. And this is the difference. This is the difference between the moment of direct awareness or intellectual understanding about direct awareness.
Right. So if you ask, is there seeing? And the answer is yes. Is there hearing? And the answer is yes. That's not the same at all as understanding the reality.
Yeah, and this is the very wise or careful understanding of the difference of Dhamma. Because there can be understanding of the words about this, understanding there is a reality which experiences, or there is a reality right now arises to experience that, but it's not directly understand any experiencing at all. Just talk about seeing and hearing, but now that which sees, that which experiences is not yet the direct object, which is object of direct awareness yet. But it begins to have the understanding that that has to be known. It's so true. At that moment of seeing, no other reality there at all, only that which is the object of understanding or experiencing. Like thinking, see, no shape, no form, no smell, no sound, but it's there arises and think. And more than that, what condition thinking to think such a way, this way or that way, about this or that? By conditions. Even right now, each word is thought about by conditions to speak out, see? Many conditions in a moment. Without the rupa, can there be sound? And without the experiencing, can sound is the object that there is a sound? And if life does not arise, how can there be the understanding that it is conditioned just to arise to be such level of attachment? Any moment can be known as it is, but it has to be understanding, not only thinking or just think that it's a reality, that's all. It's a reality. It can be spoken as it is a reality. But the reality, which one? Because seeing is not hearing. Seeing experiences an object which is seen, and hearing experience sound. Can they be the same one? But it can be the same category that it arises to experience. No matter it is hardness, it is like or dislike, of feeling.
I still have a question though, because it's so certain that the reality is not known, but on the other hand, we don't want to theoretically think that it would be a special moment if it was known, because
When we
then
talk about
deity.
Yeah, but when we talk about a moment, it's not a split second in a moment yet, right?
Yes, yes, yes. There are many moments, many.
That's what we learn to understand the subtlety of each one. How can it be covered up? Because it arises and falls away very rapidly in a split second of split seconds. See, just open one's eyes. So many things, they cannot appear if they do not impinge on the eyebase. And there must be more than just one moment of seeing to see everything. How can everything be seen in a moment? Impossible. That's why beginning to understand the amazing world, the amazing realities, unexpectedly, what is the world of one reality appearing and falling away succeedingly, appears as nimitta all the time, no matter it is seeing, it's not one single moment, and so on. That's why life is just the succession of that which arises and falls away. From moment to moment, and very short moment. That's why there must be sanya, remembering about what is going to be said or what is said. But it's not known that it's there. It conditioned the moment of remembering the word and thinking about the word and say it out by the chitta, which would like to talk about only that word. Every moment goes on secretly, very, very rapidly. That's why we learn to understand each one in the beginning, to understand that life is not just one reality. Many, many realities unknown arising. And it experiences the object or it cannot experience the object, but it's there as they are different ones. That which experiences cannot, it's impossible not to arise to experience because it is that which is conditioned to arise to experience. And that which cannot experience, no one can make it experience anything, all by conditions. And this is life, the unknown truth of life. But when there is the understanding of the truth of life, it is the beginning of less ignorance and attachment, depending on the degree of understanding. If the understanding is so very little as intellectual understanding, not directly experience the arising and falling of that, which is there now, arising and falling all the time. And this is the subtlety of the Dhamma. When Buddha had enlightened, he said, all Dhammas are so very subtle, but it can be known. That's why he taught. So he taught about seeing right now, because that is seeing. What is it? Without conditions, it cannot arise, and it cannot hear, and it cannot see. It just arises to see and then gone forever, never to arise again in samsara. What arises is only one in samsara, never to arise again. Is that true or not? Just to have confidence, stage by stage, of the truth.
So if I may be asking again, if there is a moment of satipatthana, would that, although it's so small moment, would that be clear? I mean, for an Aryan or not for me? Or would it be unnoticed?
That is seeing right now. Is it clear when it's not directly aware?
No.
So it's not the matter of
the difference between what is meant by awareness, direct awareness, satipatthana.
It's not a matter of the words, Chanti, like we can say there is seeing now, it can be said with ignorance and or attachment. But when there is a little understanding of seeing now, it is the beginning of panya, but it's the beginning of intellectual panya, not clear, not firm, not known, and there's bound to be doubt and ignorance and attachment following as usual. So this is not satipatthana. It's just the very beginning of the development of intellectual understanding. And only when it's really firm, no doubt, no question, then it conditions the direct understanding of what appears now. And when it's a direct understanding, it's not like when there is just the little understanding, which Ajahn referred to in the quote you gave, I think, about unnoticed and so on. Because when it's direct understanding, direct awareness, when it's satipatthana, it understands the object well. So it's quite different from now. So instead of thinking about what about when there is direct understanding, or how would it be for the Aryan and so on, what about beginning to understand what appears now? So the understanding begins to develop on and on, becoming firmer and firmer, more and more confidence, less and less doubt, less taking it for my seeing, my experience, or something that is experienced. Otherwise, the thinking about higher or more developed understanding distracts from the understanding of what appears now. And behind it is the idea of I. What about when I have more understanding, or it's clearer, or what about for the Aryan, for someone else? But what about now at the moment of seeing, the moment of thinking, the moment of doubt? The understanding can begin to develop right now. So I think this is the point.
Yes, thank you. Yes, it helps a lot because I'm asking to quiet all the voices of wrong view. And it's good to know that there is no moment of satipatthana possible, because the wrong view was trying to say, well, maybe there are moments happening, but it's unnoticeable. And it's also good to hear again that it's only theoretical understanding. Even when we're asked all the time, is there seeing now? And we answer yes. It's kind of tricky or dangerous to start believing that we do understand directly and we don't. So it's, yes, I'm very grateful for your answers, both of you. And thank you, Tanajan, as well.
And usually in the beginning, especially people who come from a practice background or meditation background, they think there can be direct understanding, direct awareness, satipatthana, patipati, but without any understanding of what is Dhamma now. What are the Dhammas that experience, and what are the Dhammas that are experienced? How Dhammas now are anatta, not I, not me, not my seeing, not my feeling, not my sensation, and so on. There can never be the beginning, the development of understanding that leads to the direct awareness and the direct understanding. So they talk a lot about satipatthana, but actually not even begin to understand what is Dhamma now, what is reality at this very moment.
And Chanti, I think this is the reason why one has to know the difference between intellectual understanding and what you were referring to earlier as theoretical understanding, because the word theoretical understanding is often used by these same people to refer to just having a knowledge about the different concepts taught by the Buddha, and hence their conclusion that you need to have direct understanding, and for that you need to go to a meditation center and focus on an object, etc., etc. But if they knew that, as Sarah was just referring to, that intellectual understanding and what in Pali is called pariyati is actually understanding, the understanding at the intellectual level, that there is only this moment to understand, that the Dhamma is here and now. Whatever we hear about or read about or discuss about is about the realities that arise now. And this is the difference. And this is what the meditation people lack. They don't even have this kind of intellectual understanding. Hence, the the wrong practice and ideas about bringing this and that. But there's a big difference. Intellectual understanding is understanding that there's reality now, not just in theory.
Yeah, thank you,
Yeah,
Sakin.
I think that
I think it's very important to stress that even though we start by asking, is there seeing now, or is there table, or is there hardness, or is there, I don't know, heat or smell, or that even though we say yes, this is only many moments and thinking, and that it's not at all the same as the reality that we're talking about. And that's also what you say is happening with meditation. We confuse these uncountable moments, which are made into hardness or taste or seeing, with the reality that the Buddha is talking about.
I think also that was a very good point I think you made, Sukin. That's a very clear. There's a very clear distinction between intellectual understanding and theoretical understanding. And sometimes too, the theoretical understanding is poo-pooed or put down by others as being merely theoretical understanding and not the Buddha's teachings. That I've heard that said before, that's just all theory. That's not the practice. So they use that as a bit of a they use it away as that theory, which, as you said, is not the intellectual understanding, it's not the pariyati. They use that theory to beat, in a way, metaphorically speaking, to beat upon those who stress how important correct pariyati is. So I think, and I would say, just in addition to what you said there, Shanti, is that why Ajahn is always talking about the present moment, because that is developing the intellectual understanding. That's not just theory. That's an aid, a very valuable aid and stepping stone to enable the correct pariyati to be established. That's not theory, which I said, as I said before, is used by some people to put down how important correct intellectual understanding is. So that's why I appreciate that distinction that clearly that Sukin made then before, that theory is not intellectual understanding, and it's a good example again of how these words can be misunderstood and confused.
Yes, but also even if you take one, sorry for the background, if you take one moment, I mean, in meditation, we also had always the instruction, only this moment, but that's what I'm stressing. It's the misunderstanding of one moment because it's a conceptual moment, which is uncountable chitta moments, uncountable moments of reality, and it's not even near. So it can be any word, as you say.
Well, that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. I mean, because like we've talked about this before, and like anybody can say, you know, be here now. Anybody can say that. But I think what Sukin was clearly making the distinction that there has to be the correct. Anybody can say all those different things, like you said, you know, what the meditation teacher says and so on and so forth. But anybody can say that. But that is not the correct intellectual understanding. That is just theory, or not even, yes, not even theory. It's kind of a disrespect being shown to the Dhamma, but it's being shown unknowingly. But it is a disrespect just the same.
What I want to say, Shanti, when you saying theory, right? Whether in like any other subjects, but Dhamma, what we call pariyati, is totally different, because pariyati is to understand the truth only by Buddha. Other theory is like, oh, concept and all that. And even though we're saying that like this, we're doing the intellectual understanding, it has to be the actual moment that Panya is considering. If there's no actual moment of considering, then it's not any benefit, it's useless, because it has to be one understanding. What value is the actual moment of understanding that is theoretically or intellectual?
And if there's no understanding of the understanding, is it known right now whether it is pariyati understanding or just theory? Because, for example, we can say these are the cetasikas that arise with seeing, or seeing experiences visible object now. Is that theory with ignorance, or is it understanding of the reality of seeing at this very moment? Because if it's not understanding of the reality, actually we can call it pariyati, but it's not pariyati. Many people.
So there's even when discussing and questioning, there's a lot of shifting from intellectual to theory.
Exactly.
I think
even
I
now,
used the wrong word, but I understand the discussion, of course.
Many people talk about all the details and the Pali terms and the numbers and the different cheetahs in their process and what an Aryan would understand and so on. But if it's not the understanding of about reality at this moment, beginning to understand the nature of seeing, the Dhamma that experiences, no matter what it's called, no matter what term is used, then it's not the pariyati understanding. It's not the beginning of understanding. And this was what Ajahn was referring to in the quote that you gave. When it's so little in the beginning, no knowing at all, but that understanding begins to accumulate and begins to know a little bit more about the difference between understanding and ignorance at those moments of speaking about different dhammas. So we shouldn't think it's just what other people use and at other times. It's right now, because the seeing is now, what is seen now. The understanding has to begin to develop at this moment.
Thank you all. I just want to thank you, Ajahn, for all your sessions in Bangkok. And I've been seeing them all, and I'm amazed at your good deeds and virya for teaching. And well, I wanted to thank you for this as well. I just came up very happy. Thank you.
Ajahn Suchin is best teacher right now in this world. So Ajahn,
I agree.
Yeah.
And a very important point came up in the discussions when some friends were mentioning Ajahn's teaching and Ajahn's teaching of the Dhamma, and she was stressing, and it's true, it's not her teaching. We're talking about the Buddha's teaching. We're talking about the truth as taught by the Buddha. Otherwise, we think of this person's teaching and this person who does this or that. but actually the teaching is about the truth, about dharmas as taught by the Buddha. So even when Sariputta or Ananda were teaching, it's not their teaching, it's the Buddha's teaching.
Yes, yes. Even
Buddha
Buddha,
Vachana, yes.
actually, yeah, Buddha is actually the only teacher, because from Buddha, he said that all true words are my word and not of anyone else.
And this is really important. Otherwise, it just conditions attachment to this or that teacher. And we forget that actually the Dhamma is what the Buddha left as the real teacher teaching.
And
Another
even,
thing-
even the word Buddha refers to a particular reality, not just any other name, not just a name.
I think also that this is the teaching of all the Buddhas, not just Gautama or Kassapa or Konagamana or whoever you like to quote. They all have the similar teachings. And I think we can have kusala chitta when we appreciate Tanajan, because it's her careful consideration and her constant reminders of what the true Dhamma is, that can be very helpful. And I think, as Shanti said, we can all rejoice in that.
But it's also a cause for gratitude, and it's important also to recognize the Aryans. I think it's the opposite is also a condition for wrong view. So anyway, I know it's a teaching of the Buddha, but there's also good things in recognizing your teacher right now, isn't there?
Appreciation of the kusala and of the truth, not this particular person or that person, because in truth, there is no person. So it's appreciation of the kusala and the truth that is heard and shared. Just like when we appreciate the Buddha and his teaching so much, it is in the qualities, because in reality, there wasn't a Buddha, there isn't a Buddha, but those qualities of great wisdom and great compassion and great metta and sharing, one can appreciate those qualities so much.
I mean, as the Buddha himself said,
what we call the Aryans.
I mean, and as the Buddha himself said, when you see the Dhamma, you see me.
Yes.
I'm inclined to agree with what you said, Shanti, is that yes, we can differentiate between the truth or between the concept, which is represented in the sense by the teacher, but we can appreciate the qualities that that teacher represents. There's no question about that. That's kusala, in my view.
And I can be one of the sample of careful studying with respect, great respect to the enlightened one, because dhammas are so very subtle. If there's no word from him, there cannot be careful study, just one word to understand his great wisdom at all. That's why the one who respects the Buddha, Satya, truly has to study each word carefully to understand the depth and the subtlety of each reality. Right now, seeing arises and falls away, that's so true, but it's not that level of experiencing directly yet. But can it be? Why not? As long as that is the beginning of understanding, little by little, a little more and a little more. That is understanding what is meant by wholesomeness as part of me, just for directly experience the absolute truth as it is right now. Otherwise, no time at all. Impossible if there is no understanding carefully, respectfully of each truth.
And Chanti, when you were earlier referring to Aryans, I was thinking even Aryans, unless they become arhats, they're still learners. They still have to develop understanding.
And we
What
touched on last
Yeah.
week too about, sorry, you keep going, Shanti, keep going.
Do you mind who's erring and who's not erring, or just what is truth and what is not truth, and what is the meaning of the word of truth? It is so true, no matter who say it, like seeing right now. Who can say that it's not there? Because it sees right now, and that is the truth subject. And all subject can be directly experienced, but not with ignorance and attachment as my or me, but it's the understanding little by little, which let go ignorance, which take everything for something or self. When
And
it's
I was
so
going
true,
to add the more careful study and respect of each word, the less idea, little by little, of someone there, something there, an Aryan or this or that person, because the careful study leads to the understanding of Dhamma, different Dhammas. And this is the truth, the Satya Parami. So it is the development of understanding that gradually lets hold of the grasp of taking it for someone, something, actually just different dharmas to be known.
I think we're all all aware of that, Sarah. We're all very aware of that it is just dhammas. And you seem determined to remind us that it is otherwise, in a sense. We're dealing with Samma Sambuddha who spent trillions and trillions of lifetimes, and that can be appreciated. Those qualities of what a Samma Sambuddha is can be appreciated. Ultimately, of course, it is Dhamma. And it's actually, Tanajan is often, when I look, Sarah, can we just leave this one? Really? You seem determined to push a point.
I think the point always is, which Ajahn was stressing, is that it is the careful study of dhammas that is important. And I don't think the truth of dhammas as anatta can be pushed, as you put it, or emphasized enough. So usually we think in a day about different people, different accumulations, but actually the point is, and this is the Pariyata understanding at this moment, no matter it's seeing, no matter it's annoyance, no matter it's attachment, it's just Dhamma, not anyone, not belonging to anyone. And so no matter whether it's understanding now or ignorance, they're just Dhammas that arise and fall away, gone instantly, of no importance. So this is why we always have to come back to this very moment. So what appears now, patience, impatience, kindness, annoyance, is just Dhamma to be known at this very moment. And this is what all the teachings point to. Otherwise, like Nina was saying, the ideas of my discouragement or lack of understanding, or as we were discussing last week, or wishing to have more metta, it's all clinging to oneself. And when there's clinging to oneself, there's clinging to the idea of other people and whether they have understanding or not, and so on. It's not the understanding of Dhamma at this very moment. And it's
any clinging now, Sarah?
Depends on conditions at this moment. At moments of consideration, at moments of understanding, no clinging, letting go for a moment. But it doesn't belong to anyone. It doesn't belong to you or me or anyone. It's just Dhamma.
And mostly,
and it is that clinging that leads to discouragement, that leads to disturbance, to annoyance, to getting upset about this or that.
and even though when we speak that they are anatta and all that, no me, no self, but actually we're talking with atta, because mostly we are self, like who are we? We're just putujana with all the kilesa. So when we're saying that anatta and all that, actually we're talking with the self that's saying that anatta, but not the understanding.
Yes, that's true. We think we've heard enough. We think it's all clear. We think we know all this. We think it doesn't need to be emphasized, but this isn't correct, because that subtle, deep-rooted clinging to the idea of self is there. The Ditthasava is there, completely unknown. So it's not clear enough. It's not understood. It hasn't been heard enough. Thank you, Haji.
ท่านอาจารย์
Yes,
would you like to add something?
just a very little example right now. There is hardness, right? Is it as clear as when it's touched? When we say there is hardness right now, hardness that we just talked about, is it as hard as when it's there, when there is touching? Intellect understanding and direct understanding. See, we can say a thing that there is hardness for sure, that is hard and this is hard, but is it as hard as when it's touched or experienced? This is the difference between intellectual understanding and the moment when hardness appears to be the object of understanding. Of its hardness, when there's no understanding, it's hard. But when there's understanding, it's just a reality. You don't have to say that it's a reality, but hardness is there as a reality. That's why no matter we talk about this and that as so very true, is it as true as when it appears to direct awareness? And this is the beginning to see the difference so far from moment of thinking about it and moment when it's there appearing. That's why we begin to understand. The more there is the understanding of the truth, the more so far to discern or to realize its truth as it is, as no one and nothing. That's why this is the way to let go, clinging or wishing, wanting to experience such as it is, not by dreaming or thinking, but by moment of touching. See, hardness is there. When there's no thought, no awareness, no understanding of its truth as it's just a reality, not anything at all. That's why this is the difference between the moment of being aware and understanding that quality as it is as hardness, to know that actually it cannot be smell or it can be other thing. And later on, learning to understand little by little to be sure it's not there all the time. Even at moment when it appears as hardness, it arises and falls away, for sure. And the understanding of this will let go, trying to experience it, to have more understanding of it, but to understand any reality as is there, as it is, not just only hardness. Even now, seeing the same as hardness, we talk about it, but it's not the moment when it's there as the object of and experiencing reality, which arises. Otherwise, it cannot experience, the object cannot appear. But now the object appears from time to time, many different ones, but no understanding of the truth. Just learn to understand anatta or dhammas, understanding difference between each reality in order to understand what is what when it's there appearing, to be known that it cannot be taken for anything at all. So natural, depending on conditions. not forgetting. Sati arises and is aware of understanding. What is that? Or there are many levels of sati too. It's not the word, but it's a reality, which is not forgetful about wholesomeness and understanding. So sati is that which is aware of a reality that is there. The characteristic of it is there, can be known as nothing, only that reality. And later on, it arises in false way. But it's not just as easy or as soon, quite a long way. The more there is the understanding of the subtlety of each reality, it let go the wish or the idea to experience it by oneself, but by conditions only, by understanding little by little of the truth of whether it is moment of direct awareness or not. No doubt about moment with direct awareness, because the characteristic of awareness appears as it is aware. Right then. If sati at level of direct awareness does not arise, how can there be the understanding of that characteristic which is satipatthana?
Yes, like now we know that the sati remembers what is right and is aware of what is kusala. But if it's not the direct awareness, then it's not known at all. It's just a moment of kusala, that because awareness guards and knows what is right and is aware of what is kusala and what isn't. So it has to develop a long way with the understanding to be the direct awareness and direct understanding, and then no doubt about what is awareness.
Sarah, you were saying that if there's no direct awareness, then it wouldn't be known. But what about the intellectual, like panya, intellectually, that also have the panya and the sati also.
Beginning to understand what is the nature of awareness, little by little, but it isn't the same as the direct understanding and that direct awareness of the characteristic of sati. So that's why it's only the intellectual right understanding and awareness that begins to develop. So at moments of kusala with understanding, there is, or at any moments of awareness, even without understanding, sati is aware of what is right and what is wrong. It is aware of what is kusala and prevents akusala at those moments. But without the development of understanding, it's not known at all.
Intellectually, this can beginning to understand, but not
just like now discussing it, beginning to understand how there has to be that characteristic of awareness now at moments of wise considering or moments of goodness. Without awareness, it couldn't be good at this moment. There couldn't be kindness at this moment. But like Chanti referred to, it's weak, so it's not known, just the beginning of right considering only. So only when it is the direct awareness can it be actually known. And I'd like to mention, Ajahn, last week when you weren't here, I think Mark, is he still here? Yes, Mark was talking about the Brahma Viharas and the characteristic of metta, and there are common ideas of having metta to oneself. And I think, Mark, you gave the example of when you're agitated or anyone is agitated and there is some suffering as you referred to it, and it seems that the metta meditation to yourself seems to lead to being more relaxed. And we were discussing the nature of metta and the nature of the Brahma Viharas to others, but it was quite a difficult point discussed in detail. So maybe you would like to mention a little bit more about how you consider metta now, and Ajahn may like to add some more comments.
Well, it's not so much the meditation of metta that I meant, but it is when there's a certain agitation visible in the mind. It can happen that the mind sees that the agitation is connected to an unpleasant feeling. And when that is seen, there is a letting go of the agitation, which goes sort of, well, it just happens. So when agitation and unpleasant feeling is seen as related to each other, the agitation is let go, and that it feels like there is compassion involved. That was what we were talking about, and then was mentioned that it couldn't be compassion because compassion is always directed to others and never to self. And we talked about it on the how do you call it, on the ESG. And what I understand now is that compassion, karuna, is a parami, and that it's always directed to others. So if there's something which looks like compassion and it's directed to one's own suffering, it cannot be karuna, but it has to be something else. That's what I well, in the case of compassion, it's difficult because to me it happens many times that I can see agitation in myself, and I can see the connection between agitation and unpleasant feeling, and I can see the relaxation of the mind and the unpleasant feeling and the agitation disappearing at the time. So it really feels like there is, conventionally speaking, it really feels that there is compassion with the unpleasant feeling because of the agitation. So I'm not sure. Apparently, it's not. Apparently, it's not a parami. Apparently, it's not compassion. But something is happening.
Ajahn, could you follow what you said?
I'd like to understand that. Shall we talk about metta or what?
Well, the discussion was a bit. The discussion was a bit fucked. How do you say that? Unclear. But my question would be, I think, if I find myself, my mind being agitated, and at the same time see the relation between the agitation and the unpleasant feeling, I can see something happening in the mind which looks like compassion, and at that same time the agitation just dissolves, and also the unpleasant feeling. So it's not so much about metta, it's more about compassion, I think.
Realities are so very subtle, and if we don't talk about each one carefully, we might misunderstand the meaning of it. For example, the translation about metta, or the development of metta, I am not sure if like the one who understands how they translate it, because to me, I don't think that there is any moment of metta for oneself. What does it mean?
I don't know, but what I do think is that there can be some goodness towards oneself. And I have learned we cannot call that metta, because metta is always directed to, as it has another person, as another being as object. So it can't be metta.
The other person, I understand that, but to oneself, I cannot understand that at all. How can there be metta to oneself?
I have learned that there can't be. I understand now that there can't be metta towards oneself, but there can be, I think there can be some goodness towards oneself. In the example I gave, when I see agitation and I see unpleasant feeling, there can be a sort of relaxation, and the agitation just dissolves. And
agitation is kusala or akusala?
Agitation, it's akusala.
So can it be anyone, or it's conditioned to be agitation?
It's conditioned.
And it's gone. Can it belong to anyone? Or
No.
is it just a reality?
Yes,
because
it's a reality, yeah. But there seems to be, at the time, there seems to be a connection between when there's agitation and unpleasant feeling, the next thing that can happen is relaxation. And that seems to be because there's a kind of understanding between that the unpleasant feeling and the agitation are related to each other. So it's not. I don't think I'm doing it, but it's happening. So at the moment of agitation and unpleasant feeling and the understanding that they are related, there is relaxation. So there's letting go of the agitation, and that kind of feels as if there is compassion.
And the point is to understand agitation or relaxation or what?
Or impersonal, anatta.
That's why whenever agitation is there, it can be known. It's different from metta, right?
Yes, right, yeah.
So it's a reality. Nobody can change. That's why we learn how many realities are there.
Yes, I understand.
More than the different degrees of each one,
yes,
by different conditions. So they are different in a moment to a moment, not the same one at all. And then on to understand the truth is that no matter what kind of reality is that, it can be known that it's real, it's a reality, it's conditioned to be only that for a while, that's all. It cannot last at all.
No.
Otherwise, the idea of self is there, and it cannot let go, no matter its agitation or what, any kind of annoyance. I is there. When there's no understanding that it's only a moment, it's conditioned. Who's that person or who's what is taken for I? Nothing, because it's gone. As soon as it has a reason, it's not there anymore. To learn to understand will get rid or help one to have less agitation because of understanding. But it's not the aim to have less. It's the aim is to understand the truth that no matter how great it is or how little it is, whatever is there is conditioned to be only that and then gone. It saves time to just think about it because it's there to be known. We don't have to find out what is agitation, what condition it's arising, because it's there already.
Yes, I understand.
By conditions. To understand, no matter it is kindness or agitation or relaxation, as reality is Dhamma. This is the point of listening to Dhamma, to understand the truth of Dhamma. What is meant by Dhamma? Whatever is real is conditioned to be that only in that very moment. No more, only that, that's gone. Everything arising and falling away. And this is the understanding, agitation as Adhamma, because it's Adhamma, it's real. It does not belong to anyone, but it's conditioned to arise. And by having such understanding, it will let go more agitation to be less agitation, depending on conditions too, what level of understanding. If you have right understanding and be kind and have compassion for everyone, you don't mind at all what the other things about you, whether they do not like you because you speak the truth about meditation center or whatever, it doesn't matter at all. No one can hurt you, only ignorance and clinging to I. When there's no I and you have kindness and compassion, you cannot get angry with anyone at all. You have more compassion because of their ignorance, not understanding what is right and what is wrong and what is Dhamma, not self, which is very, very difficult to realize the truth because it's not just the word, it's a reality. It's there just when it's there and then gone, never to return again. So it does matter because no more to be object of agitation. So no matter it is relaxation or agitation, a reality, different reality, that's all. You cannot make it arise, but when there are conditions for whatever arises, it has to arise and gone, no one at all. And what is more useful is to consider the truth, to understand reality as not self, because the absolute truth is that they are only different conditioned realities, just to arise and then gone.
Yes.
And Mark, if I could just add for a minute, you say that there's agitation and then there's relaxation, and then with some understanding of the connection between agitation and the unpleasant feeling, and then the agitation is gone, and there's some kind of relative calmness. Now, we know that the agitation, of course, is akusala, but the question is when that goes and is replaced by the relative calmness, whether that's kusala or akusala. And just because it's a lot better than what was there a minute ago doesn't necessarily mean that it's kusala, because kusala.
Well, the thing which happens at the time, so what is seen is the relationship between the unpleasant feeling and the agitation, and what happens next. It seems that the agitation is let go because what is understood is that the unpleasant feeling and the agitation are related to each other.
Yes, I appreciate that.
And that's because that's why there is afterwards there's relaxation. And that seems that the relaxation is some kind of adosa.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's how it seems. But I'm just making the point that we cannot say that it must be kusala rather than some kind of weak attachment. Or so there's no rule that it must be kusala in that situation that you describe. You say there's seeing that of the connection between the agitation and the unpleasant feeling. That seeing depends whether that is a level of panya or not. It can be just a kind of thinking without panya. The person who has not heard the Buddha's teaching could have the same kind of reflection and come to it, have a similar experience to yourself. So I just want to put a warning here that I know it seems like it might be kusala, but there's no point in assuming that it is.
There's no
And
point in identifying with it.
Unless the difference between kusala and subtle akusala is known at other moments in daily life, then it'd be dangerous. It'd be risky to think this must be kusala. I'll have more of that, or whenever this happens, it's kusala. And actually, there's no point in assigning it to kusala or akusala, because kusala may arise at any time. It has to be known by its characteristic, and the sooner we forget about it in this situation, there's likely to be some kusala or more kusala or whatever.
John, I want to add to your point. What you might say that whether this be kusala or not akusala, and then what impact, this is actually wrong view. You're going to wrong way. You think that, oh, this will be that, this will be this, with self doing this like that, but it's just only understanding by anatta, no expectation and all that.
Well, I agree. No expectation is a useful thing to keep in mind. And I think Mark has been trying to convince us that there is some kusala involved. There may or may not be, Mark, and I don't think it matters particularly. But the important thing is, as Ajahn keeps reminding us, that it's an understanding of what appears at the present moment. And from that point of view, it doesn't matter whether the agitation stays or goes away, because when it's there, it can be known by its characteristic. And a moment of understanding of that characteristic is, which is kusala, is a level of sati and panya, and is much more valuable than other moments that are kusala, that may replace the moments of agitation. So we need to keep in mind that the goal here, the task, is a better understanding of what appears in the present moment, whatever reality that may be. And it may be fleeting, it may be very weak, as Shanti mentioned, unnoticeable, imperceptible, but we are confident, we have the confidence that if that goal is kept in mind without expectation, then that is more useful than thinking of certain situations as being liable to be kusala, or certain experiences that one has had or may have repeatedly as involving kusala, because that is a trap.
Jonathan,
as
could you
Harji has just mentioned.
Sorry, Jonathan, can you hear me?
Yes.
Could you reiterate the sentence? The characteristic of kusala has to be understood, because you later said, and I'm glad you did, with no expectations, because it's not good for us to understand this as an instruction that we should now understand the characteristic of kusala, because we cannot at this stage. Yet you do say the characteristic has to be understood. So could you take away the expectation?
I can only try to answer your question. When I use the term characteristic of kusala, this is not quite the same as characteristic of reality, anicca, dukkha, anatta. I'm using characteristic in the sense of distinguishing attribute, if you like. Because the person who is developing samatha alone, but who hasn't heard the Buddha's teaching, for example, also comes to understand the moments of kusala from the moments of akusala, and is able to distinguish the subtle akusala from kusala. That person who hasn't heard the teaching of the Buddha doesn't really understand about the momentary dhammas and their characteristics. But the feature, if you like, of kusala, we've touched on this a number of times, I'm sure, is the mental factor of karmas that is associated with every kusala citta. And the distinguishing feature of akusala is the I forget the word, similar to agitation. Can you think of the word I'm trying to get?
Restlessness?
Thank you. Thanks, Sukin. The restlessness, the mental factor that arises with every instance of akusala. Does that help?
And Mark, I think what John was also talking about, and I mean, his understanding on the whole is that the important point for us as students of Dhamma is to understand Dhammas, whatever appears as just a reality, not try to understand anything more, because that's there are many levels of understanding, and although people who have developed samatha can see the distinction between moments of kusala from moments of akusala, it's not like there's any understanding of realities. And on the other hand, if there's understanding of realities, there's less liability, tendency to speculate, which is what most people do, and speculate about moments being moments of compassion and whatnot. They come to their own conclusions about what the moment might be. And that's just because there's no understanding and the idea of self that just speculates. So the path is actually to understand and not be too concerned about what the reality, a particular reality is, but just understand that it's just a Dhamma and anatta. And if you find yourself wanting to be, for example, less agitated or not wanting to be angry, know that it's that moment there's no understanding. And rather than understanding that the moment is conditioned, it's wanting to have things different. And that's just all self.
Wrong view.
Liability to speculate is a good one.
And usually we're interested in the agitation because it's unpleasant. Everyone wants to get rid of the dosa. No one minds about the clinging or the ignorance. But as Ajahn was also stressing, that it is the understanding that develops naturally only that will let go of the clinging and the agitation, and there won't be the blaming of others or circumstances for it. There'll be understanding of the Dhamma and how it is accumulated. And it is only the understanding that leads to more kindness, more compassion, more consideration for others, no matter what they say or think or act or do, less clinging to oneself, which is what causes the agitation and all the disturbances in life.
And Sarah, and to come to know that metta and karuna cannot be directed towards oneself.
So it is the understanding that understands the quality of kindness, the quality of being friendly, kind to others, no matter how they behave, no matter how they speak, no matter what is said or done. It's not the clinging to oneself or trying to have less agitation or thinking of one's well-being. So usually what we think of as goodness to oneself, no matter how it's said, is actually the attachment, wishing to be calm, wishing not to be agitated, wishing to be settled, without that clinging to self, no thinking about oneself.
But it seems different at the time that the agitation is let go, because the relationship between unpleasant feeling and agitation is seen. The letting go seems to involve some goodness.
Yeah, seems. That's the word.
That's what it looks like.
And that's what John was addressing.
If it's not goodness, well, it seems adosa. It seems letting go seems always adosa.
But Mark,
it's not so much. It is not so much the wanting to get rid of the unpleasant feeling. It seems much more the understanding that the agitation and the unpleasant feeling is connected, and that's why it's letting go, because there seems to be a gunnen. I don't know what the English
granting.
Word is. No, not granting. This
appreciating.
Yeah, seems that it is seen that unpleasant feeling and agitation it is better to let it go. I don't know. That's what that.
Yes, but
like.
As Sukin is saying, Mark, isn't it maybe something to consider that at moments that we find things important, like this moment for you is very important, it could be an alternation of dikti, wrong view, because at the moment of wrong view, as you say, it seems, and we cling to an opinion that it must be good or letting go, but maybe also a moment of that it is important could be mana. The thing is, it seems, maybe you should give some more importance that it seems that way, just seems.
And I think also
when we're talking about seems, I'm saying it seems because I don't want to be too confident about what is happening. I have the conviction that it is possible that Panya can understand the relationship between unpleasant feeling and agitation. And when that happens, the agitation can be let go. And that can all be kusala. It's like John said. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I am mistaken. But it's not so much about me. But it's about, for me, it's about when there is agitation and unpleasant feeling, there can be panya, and at that time the agitation can be let go. And I can imagine that adosa plays a part in this as well. So adosa and panya. And the example I gave is just an example. It's not about that, but it's.
Just a quick question then, Mark. Does kusala arise in normal daily life, other than in situations where one is considering?
Sure. Yes.
What you've been talking about. Yes. And are those moments of kusala, when they occur, are they known as kusala moments, different from all the other moments in one's daily life?
No, I'm not sure. No, I don't think so. No, moments are not recognized.
Well, not individual, not single moments, but if there's some kusala in one's daily life, it's going to be more than a single moment, isn't it? We've talked about situations and you've mentioned them. So my point is just this: if kusala isn't known as and when it arises naturally in one's daily life, then how is it possible to say in the kind of situation you're describing, when it seems kusala, that it is in fact kusala?
Oh, I don't know.
No. So
Whether
we
it's
don't know.
kusala or akusala.
So
Well, I
it's,
think I
as
know.
I say,
Well, I think it's kusala, but I know I could be mistaken.
The test is only, it has to be now. So now, what appears now? Because if there's no agitation now, it can't be known. If there's no understanding now, it can't be known. If there's no seeing now, it can't be known. So it has to come back to this moment. Otherwise, one just thinks and speculates about the situation 10 minutes ago or yesterday when there was agitation and what followed and what seemed like calmness. But it's not the understanding, the pariyatti understanding we discussed about what is true, what is real at this moment. So it can only be known when it's true, when it's real. So there can be understanding now, or there can be ignorance now, there can be agitation, or there can be kindness, but it can only be known at this very moment.
And Mark, if I may be bold and straightforward, you said that you're not sure now whether it was what you think it was, and that's why you're saying it seems. If I'm thinking that that's because you're here discussing with us people who often remind you about, being sure that it is what it is, rather than speculating. So now you're not sure. If were you in a different group, perhaps someone who had the same experience as you did, you would be more sure, wouldn't it? And and as Chanti was pointing out, the word actually seem is actually the characteristic of wrong understanding, and it is exactly that. This is the problem with wrong understanding, is that wrong understanding feels right to the one who is having the wrong understanding. So that is what I think Chanti meant by seem.
Well, what you say, it is very helpful to realize that I can be mistaken. What you said, if it was in a different group, I might say the experience I had would be was experiencing kusala citta. Maybe I would say that. So it's good to that you show me that there's a difference between this group, me in this group, and me in another group, and I understand I cannot be so sure.
Mark, you talked about letting go of the agitation.
It's not so much I. It's not so much I. It happened.
Yes. What I understand is that the task is to let go of the idea of self.
Yes, maybe. Yeah.
I think what Gabi is saying is that in the beginning, that's what would be indication of right understanding. There is gradual letting go of the idea of self.
And then there's less concern about whether it is agitation now or kindness here now or understanding or ignorance, because they're all dhammas arising by conditions gone instantly, none of them belonging to me. So no thought of letting go this or that, because they're just dhammas to be understood right here and now. No
Yes, but
selection, no
that's
preference.
Yes, that is apparent. That's I see that. I don't think there's much identification with the process I described. It was just.
And on the point you mentioned about, everyone agrees it's not metta because metta is to the others, but it's true that whenever there is understanding, there is a dosa. So no matter whether it's now at this moment or at that time or any other time, if there is understanding now that it is just a Dhamma, the agitation or the seeing or the hearing, at moments with panya, a dosa is there, but it's not towards oneself. It's just that reality that arises with understanding, not thinking of me or my agitation. Yeah, understanding of the Dhamma.
And that's what it looks like. That's what it looks like. So if I remember that situation I'm talking about, this in the relaxation, there seems to be some adosa. So there seems to be stopping identification with the process. And that for me, that's, I'm not sure whether it is, but that looks like the characteristics of adosa, the letting go.
I think there's just a few minutes left before we finish. If Ajahn would like to add anything before we finish.
Yes. What do you mean by it looks or it seems?
Well, that I'm not really sure. If I would have to make a guess, I would say that it is like that. But at the same time, I think I might be mistaken.
And what is opposite of look and seeing?
Opposite of seeing?
What is opposite of look or seeing? You say it looks or it seems. And what is the opposite of look and seeing?
The opposite. Not seeing, not look.
Understand.
As
no,
it really is, not just see or look, right? As it
well,
really
I
is.
suppose there's some doubt. It's I'm very careful in speaking here about being sure. I know I'm not too sure about lots of things.
Because all Dhammas, even the word look or see, or as it is, not just look or see. So Dhamma is so very precise when there is the understanding. Even the term not self or not me or no I, it's just not the word. But the truth is that it cannot be anyone. It cannot belong to anyone because it's conditioned to arise and then falls away instantly. That is the truth, that it is like that. But when it seems or it looks, it means that there's no understanding of the truth. So it just seems.
Well, at the moment of saying it seems, it's not understanding of the truth. My baby, at the moment of seeing it, it might.
For example,
if I go back to the situation then it happened, I was very sure it was agitation, unpleasant feeling, it was understanding, and it was letting go. I was really sure, but time has passed, and we were talking about it now, and then it's different. So the remembering has been altered a bit.
Can you change that characteristic which has been experienced?
No.
But you can use different words. but the truth is the truth.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
why we learn to understand Dhamma. The point of listening to the truth is to understand the truth of Dhamma. For example, be kind to yourself. Is it possible? Because at that moment there is kindness, and you take it from me. And how can it be kind to other eye? Because that eye has kindness.
Yes, I understand that. I understand that. But it's not so much kind to oneself. It's more, I don't know. It's letting go. It's not clinging. So it
That's
seems
why there
like
can be many ideas, but what is the truth? Not only idea, but the truth is that it's not just an idea about it, but the truth of it can be known, can be understood, can be directly experienced as is so true. It's just not like think or seen or not clear, like be kind to yourself, impossible. Because at that moment, the kindness is that, as one take for I'm kind, to whom else?
Mm.
That's why understanding reality is not easy at all. It has to think it over again and over again and over again until it's clear that there is no one and no thing at all, no matter it is agitation or relaxation or whatever. At that moment, no word. The reality shows up as so very different, but no understanding of it. So think about it, seem or look, but actually it's not there anymore to be known. That's why it can be directly known when it's there only, because it's just there. It shows up, but not to right understanding at level of letting go the idea of self. Not yet. But nobody can change that characteristic at all. So agitation is a reality. Relaxation is another reality. Different ones, but they are Dhamma, no one at all. This is the point of listening, to let go the idea of self.
Yes, I
Because
understand.
actually, it doesn't seem. Actually, the truth is that it's gone, never to arise again. So how can it be someone or I?
No, I understand it. That I understand the truth of what you're saying.
So we learn about the absolute truth, the teaching of the enlightened one about all dhammas as anatta, agitation or relaxation, adhamma, no one at all, until it appears clearer and clearer, closer and closer to just be aware of. See, it's so clear and clear and clearer. Even just the word to be aware of in the beginning is not as clear, and it's not just at that very object. Until then, nothing more, only right understanding of the absolute truth of it. Now we talk about agitation and relaxation, but it's not there. And when it arises again, not that same one which has fallen away, but it's conditioned by the other different one. No one, no thing permanent at all. That's why it is not easy to understand, even just the word, that which appears, no one there. Because hardness is hardness. Can there be anything or anyone? It cannot be the eye, the arm, the nail, or anything at all. Just hardness. That is the absolute truth. And it's gone. What is left is only the shape and form and the nimitta and the idea of something, which is not there at all. That's why the nature of that, which is Adhamma, just arise and falls away, is so very, very deep and very, very subtle. But even so, what is there? Only that which is there can be known as it is. When Panya is strong enough, firm enough. Is it possible? when it begins to understand the truth, little by little, it can understand more and more, clearer and clearer. So I think it's fine now. See you next time.
Thank you very much
Sawasdee.
for being here, Tanajan.
So